Once upon a time, in a land where pencils were scarce and bellies went hungry, there lived a boy. He was ordinary and often overlooked, but deep inside he possessed a great thirst for knowledge and a drive to survive. He carried his torn backpack with him at all times. It was covered in Sharpie drawings and filled to the brim with all he carried.
On his back, he carried his mother and father, who could no longer carry themselves or care for him. He carried his 3 younger siblings, who looked to him to set boundaries and act as both mommy and papi. He carried the papers which held no meaning for him, the math that looked like Greek, and the note to his current guardian describing his most recent infraction. He carried his dread. He walked into school one day and sat down at his battered desk for math.
¿Qué quieres?
He asked his young teacher with a sneer. She looked at him, wide-eyed, and quickly turned back to the board to finish writing the gibberish he could not read. He rolled his eyes. He tossed a spitball at the girl in front of him. I saw the boy's loneliness, but the teacher remained with her back to him, and he shifted in his seat, fighting to hide his disappointment. She did not see the boy. The hour passed, and it was soon time for the boy to shuffle down the hall to science. The boy hefted his backpack onto his left shoulder and slammed his body into his seat. He could not read the equations. He did not know what substances were in the beakers. The teacher began to lecture, but the words made no sense. They danced along the walls and bubbled in the beakers, but the boy could capture no words. His mind began to wander.
Pay attention!
The teacher bellowed.
Don't you know I have better things to do than waste class time explaining this for the 3rd time?
The boy's eyes widened. Then, glancing at the faces around him, he smirked to hide his discomfort.
I saw the boy's confusion,
but the teacher only growled.
Get out of my class.
He did not see the boy. The day passed, and the boy passed the time watching the hands on the clock methodically work their way around the stark white face. Watching, waiting, wishing. It was time for language arts. Wearily, he shifted his backpack to his right shoulder and walked to sit at his graffitied desk. As the students filed in behind him, they took out their books and began to read. The boy sat stoically at his desk, right hand gripping the strap of his backpack. He took out no book. Suddenly, the teacher bent down next to his desk. She asked him where his book was, and he said nothing. She asked him if he needed a recommendation, and he said nothing. She asked if he understood the question, and he said nothing. Slowly, she looked him in the eyes.
What's in your backpack?
She asked. His eyes met hers, and I knew she saw the boy. It was as if a great weight had been lifted off of his shoulders. From his backpack, he pulled out his parents' abandonment and his siblings' helplessness. He pulled out the gibberish from math and the bubbling beakers from science. He pulled out his loneliness and his fear. He pulled out his hurt and confusion. He pulled and pulled and pulled until finally he reached the bottom of his bag. And it was light. And it was empty. The boy looked at his backpack and saw something strong. As he looked up into the face of his teacher, the boy felt relieved. His teacher smiled and said,
Why don't we share the load? I'll carry this with you for a while.
The boy smiled.
I think I could carry it myself.
He replied.
But do you think you could find me a book?